numbers that have only been climbing in recent years. And it is one of the places where we know that there is still work to be done in terms of the relationship between the police forces and the local community, and I know that they are doing that work. I'm here to speak at the national level. Being in this role, you bring your life experience, you bring your perspective. I'm a member of Canada's Black diaspora, and having this platform gives me the opportunity to highlight that the use of force against Black and Indigenous people in Canada is something that is disproportionate, and it is something that is ongoing. The United Nations has expressed concern over the excessive use of force and killings by the police, especially in response to cases involving vulnerable people of African descent. This was part of their report in 2017 on people of African descent. So here are some of the statistics. And unfortunately, there are no proper provincial or national databases on the use of force, and so we often rely on the media to do the investigative work. But here are some of the statistics that we know. That here in Toronto, Black Torontonians are 20 times more likely to be shot by police than white residents. That over 35% of the people killed by the RCMP between 2007 and 2017 were Indigenous. This is despite being less than 5% of the general population. 35% des personnes abattues par la police sont des personnes autochtones, même s'ils sont que pour 5% de la population. Et je parle de la police nationale. From 2000 to 2017, 60% of the victims of fatal police incidents were in Manitoba, were Indigenous, despite being only 5% of the population. In Saskatchewan, Indigenous people are 15% of the population, but represent 62% of the deaths by police. And again, these are statistics up to 2017 because, again, we don't have a national database. And so, alors, l'utilisation de force contre les groupes racisés et les peuples autochtones, et surtout parmi les groupes racisés contre les peuples noirs, c'est un problème. C'est un problème sans qu'il y a beaucoup de responsabilités. The use of force is often accompanied by an alarming lack of accountability. Very few of the cases that are prosecuted or where criminal charges are laid result in an officer being convicted. This was also something that the United Nations expressed concern about. And so we simply do not know the extent of police use of force and fatal police incidents in Canada because no level of government is systematically tracking that. And now, while that may sound dry and that may sound technical, it is very hard to address what you are not measuring. It is very hard to assess the usefulness, the efficiency, the effectiveness of our measures if we are not starting from a baseline. And so it is important to collect these statistics. It is important to know where we stand. And again, the United Nations Working Group on People of African Descent expressed concern that there were no race-based statistics on fatal police incidents kept by Statistics Canada. Alors, si on veut être en mesure d'évaluer l'utilisation de force, d'évaluer nos initiatives pour combattre l'utilisation de force contre les peuples racisés, contre les peuples autochtones et les autres groupes par identité, il faut commencer à le mesurer, il faut commencer à garder ces données. And so what we are calling for, and we called for this during the last session of Parliament, was the creation of a national database to record police use of force and other incidents. We need this database to track victims of incidents of use of force, by police identifying race, ethnic background, and other identities. We want to see the federal government working in conjunction with the provinces to ensure that there are national standards for the collection of this information and that it is shared between jurisdictions. It's the little details that make a difference. And as someone who is the mother of 2 Black boys, I want to know that wherever they are in this country, that they are safe. I want to know that there is no one that is worried about their personal safety in their interactions with the police, with the RCMP, and with provincial police and municipal police, simply because of their identity. So let's collect the information. Let's use it to create initiatives that work. Let's make sure that people who continue to feel unsafe in the skin that they are in feel a little more safe when the next session of Parliament opens. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. I believe there are no questions on the ground, so I'm going to go straight to those of you who joined us on Zoom. Il n'y a pas de questions sur place, alors je commence avec des questions à Zoom. On va commencer avec David Thurton from CBC. We will begin with David Thurton from CBC. Please go ahead, David. One question, one follow-up.
Hi, Madam Paul. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate this. I just wanted to ask you a question about travel. I know you've been getting a lot of questions about this. Do you plan to leave Toronto Centre? And also, can you tell us how come you've decided to focus so much of your time in Toronto Centre?
Well, I will be traveling shortly, David, for the national debates. I spent the most of the month of June as well in Ottawa, and as soon as the restrictions were lifted, I went directly to Quebec, which I've been trying to get to for a while. I have been trying, of course, ever since becoming leader and being elected during the second wave of the pandemic to travel. But we had a second wave, and then we had a third wave, and now we are in a fourth wave. And so this is the context for me as a leader. It's not only unusual, but I'm alone in this. The leaders of the other parties have had the opportunity to be running as incumbents in their ridings. They have the opportunity, therefore, to do more traveling than me. Because at the end of the day, David, I need to earn the trust and the vote of the people in this riding. And I think that it is important to demonstrate that I'm here to be their representative. So we haven't ruled out travel. We're still looking into doing that. We still have, of course, the time to do that. And in the meantime, we're using modern technologies and all of the other tools that we have available to us and the other parties as well to reduce our carbon footprint while having truly authentic connections with people across the country.
Do you have a follow-up, David, please?
Yeah, I kind of just want to switch gears here. My colleague Travis Danraj is tweeting today. He's tweeting that a Liberal candidate, Irene Walker, said that you have done a great disservice to women, people who are not white, and Jews. He's tweeted that her comments. He's also tweeted that the Liberal candidate has since apologized. Has she apologized to you? Do you have any reaction to this tweet that has surfaced?
I just learned of this, David, and no, I have not received any apology from that candidate. So I don't know who she's apologized to. I just learned of this, but as I understand it, there isn't anything on Twitter about that apology or any statement. I guess I just have to say that these kind of comments, whether from a Liberal candidate or otherwise, are really just an ongoing background theme ever since I've entered politics, but certainly during this election. I think it was another CBC reporter that reported recently that even though we are the smallest of the major parties, that our party is third in the rankings in terms of receiving online hate and unacceptable hate. And of course, a lot of that is directed at me. I have been constantly attacked, on a daily basis for my Jewish identity in particular, but also as a woman and also as a person of color. And again, this is something that is too frequent. It happens too often. It's incredibly painful. It's incredibly damaging, and it will continue to drive good people seeking to serve Canada out of politics. I'm alarmed to know that someone who was vetted by the Liberal Party was able to tweet something like this and was still approved as a candidate without having first apologized. And it seems that the apology came today, and therefore they were vetted and approved even after having said those incredibly hateful and hurtful things in a public forum. This seems to be a growing pattern with the Liberal Party. We know there are also concerns about the candidate in Kitchener Centre. So I can say for my part, I hope to receive that personal apology. I hope that everyone will call out hate when they see it, because the silence clearly emboldens hate. And I hope that we will try to work towards a society where people from diverse backgrounds can feel welcome and included in politics, because it's still way too hard, and it still asks too much of people seeking to serve.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Thank you, David. We'll go to a question from Jordan Press from the Canadian Press, please. Jordan, go ahead. One question, one follow-up, please.
Good afternoon, Ms. Paul. I just want to ask you about some of the issues being talked about in this campaign, because here you are talking about an issue that maybe doesn't get a lot of attention from some of the other party leaders. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what maybe some of the issues that you've been hearing at the doors during this campaign that have not really been discussed and should be, in your mind, being discussed among the party leaders.
Yes, and you're right. This is certainly one of them. People at the door in our community, certainly personal safety and the safety of their families is one that concerns them. Certainly, we're heading back to school, and so there are many who are concerned about how their children are going to return to school safely. Because many, of course, young children, they can't be vaccinated, and so they're worried about that. They're also worried about homelessness within the community. They see the growing inequality, and they see their neighbors, and they consider those who live in the parks to be their neighbors, without the safety and security that a country like Canada should be able to provide. They also express their concern about the way politics is conducted in this country. They're concerned about the partisanship and how it seems to have overtaken good public policy. They want to see more cooperation between parties. They're dismayed that we have this election for that reason. They want to see us get back to work. And so I would say if there's one thing that people are hoping for beyond the specific issues of concern, it's just that we will find more ways to get along with each other, to work in cooperation so that we can help people in a meaningful way and actually just also set a good example. We need to set a good example for people in Canada so that they can see that people, even with different points of view, can work together.
So as my follow-up then, can you maybe describe a bit about how then you might carry that idea into next week's debate, given you will have your first opportunity to face, to debate issues with the other party leaders because you weren't able to last night? How do you plan to carry that idea into that debate to discuss some of the ideas that you're putting forward?
That's a great question. And, the format of the debate, it seems to be very similar to that in the previous election. One that I found, just as, I was a candidate, but also a Canadian, very excited to listen to the leaders propose their visions and seeking the opportunity to compare and contrast those visions. I found unnecessarily combative. The format, I found that it didn't allow enough room for true conversation and discussion. And so I'm trying to think about how can I bring some more civility to the debates? How can I bring perhaps a little more calmness to it? And how can I do my part to ensure that any person who is sitting down for the first time, for instance, any new Canadian who is about to vote for the first time, and I've met many of them in this neighborhood who have told me this is the first time they'll be eligible to vote, or any young person who just turned 18 and is about to vote for the first time. I'm hoping that we give them something to feel good about, something to feel proud of, something that they want to engage in. And it's really going to depend upon how we approach each other on the debate stage. So I'm going to share our vision for Canada. I'm going to share our policies, but I'm hoping to do it in a way that is honorable and respectful and gives everyone something to feel good about at the end.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Thank you, Jordan. Are there any other questions? Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions? Oh, I see David's hands up again. David, do you have another question? Do you have time, Ms. Paul, for another question?
Yes, I do. From David, always.
Okay. Go ahead, David. Allez-y, David.
Thank you. I guess I have a couple questions here. What are the Greens saying in this election about funding for the police? There's still calls for defunding of the police, and yes, I know it's a provincial jurisdiction generally, but we do have a federal police force, and so this could be in the federal realm, and there are groups such as Black Lives Matter that are calling for the abolishment, the defunding, and the reallocation of those funds. Where does the Green Party stand on that?
So you're absolutely right. We can certainly sit down with provincial partners and talk about how we can reimagine policing at every level of government, but focusing on the RCMP, it's one of the reasons that I quoted those statistics related to the RCMP. We have a problem there as well. We know that we do. We've seen a national reckoning and grappling with some of the issues within the RCMP that still need to be resolved. And so, we will be discussing this in our platform, which will be out shortly. But what we have said is that whether it's the RCMP or other levels of policing in Canada, we want to see it reoriented back to its core role. Too often, police officers are called upon to intervene in situations that they are not properly trained or prepared to intervene in, and that leads to fatal consequences in some cases. We are not calling, to be clear, we are not calling for the abolition of the police. There are many communities and certainly many situations where we need police, we need a security force to intervene, but we need to keep the mandate limited, and we need to divert not only the human resources but also the funding towards community agencies that are better able to deal with the situations that the police are too often called upon to respond to. And so when you take those measures and combine them with things like a national database that allows us to track the use of force by the police at every level, then we can absolutely evaluate our progress, keep working towards more progress. And let's never forget that the communities who are most impacted by a policy issue should be the ones leading policy development. And so in the case of Indigenous peoples and the Black diaspora in Canada, we should always be in the room when these policies are designed, not consulted after the fact. This is how we end up with policies that don't work.
Just as a follow-up, I'm just going to ask you to kind of reflect personally on your life. And I know not every Black person has a negative experience with the police or law enforcement agencies, whether it's the border services and whatnot. That's also federal jurisdiction. Some people have a good experience, but I'm going to ask you to maybe reflect on your own experience. What is your experience with law enforcement as a Black person in Toronto? How has it impacted your life? Has it impacted it in a positive way, in a negative way, or, I don't know. Yeah. Sorry,
a wasp just flew at my head. There are many wonderful law enforcement, and as I said, law enforcement serve an essential purpose in this community and in many other communities as well. As I said, I'm the mother of two black sons. One is no longer a boy, and one is almost no longer a boy. I want to know that wherever they are in our country, they feel safe and secure. And it just simply isn't the case that they always feel safe and secure, or my brothers, or those within our community. And so there are many wonderful interactions, but there are also, the statistics, and the statistics don't lie. Being a black man or being an Indigenous person in this city and in others and in other provinces is still much more dangerous than it should be, even in interactions with police who are supposed to be there to protect you. And so we have this work to be done, and it has been delayed endlessly. This is the time to do it. It's well overdue. And we really know what we need to do again, I mean, this is always easy for me because the recommendations have been on the books for years. The work has been done. What we have missed is the political will. So I don't want to ever have to turn my head to the shoulder or worry that my boys have to look over their shoulder, or worry that when a police officer is approaching them, that it's for anything but goodwill and to serve and protect. And so I feel an obligation to use the platform that I have to draw attention to these issues that are really life and death in some communities, and to ask the people of Canada to support these policies, and insist that any party they support supports these policies as well, and makes them a priority in the next session of Parliament.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Thank you, David. Are there any other questions today? Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions aujourd'hui? No more questions? That will be all for today. Merci, Madame Paul. Ça va être tout pour aujourd'hui.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
And that concludes our press conference for today. Thank you.